our goals and influence our behavior. It is our attitude that will actually determine our outlook in all situations and will therefore shape our destiny. So with that, next slide please. I hope you've learned a bit from my presentation. Thank you for your attention. If you need more coaching on how to get your first job, you may actually email me at this email addresses. Last year, a lot of the Y4IT participants contacted me asking for advice on how they can actually land their first job. And from the thank you messages that I got after some time, I think I was able to help many of them. But I have to tell you this as well. But many did not even respond to my email asking them to send me a list of all their strengths. Taka ako, ano ito? Ihahanapan ko kayo ng trabaho? Okay? If you are not ready to help yourself, please do not bother to ask for my advice. Enjoy the rest of the day. Mabuhay tayong lahat. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, sir, so much, Sir Mon. Guys, common sense, the most critical attribute that an employer will be looking for. So take note of that guys, okay? To our fourth year students, graduating students, and to all our students, I hope you learned a lot from Sir Mon's presentation. All right, okay? So for our next speaker founded Orange and Bronze Software Labs 16 years ago because he felt that Philippine software industry was not practicing the right software development practices. He provided the first agile software development training courses in the country. And his company was the first in the country to practice agile software development company-wide. He's none other than Mr. Callan Legaspi.
Hi everyone. Normally this talk is an hour long, so medyo I'll skip through some of the slides um, I'll try to skip through as many slides as I can. Um, just some misconceptions. A lot of CS grads are bombarded with different opportunities, right? Different. There's a lot of hype in our industry, so I just want to clear some misconceptions as well as some of the core skills that will be important to any new CS grad joining the industry. Um, so one, there's a lot of hype about machine learning, right? It's a fantastic specialization, but it hasn't really caught on here, right? There's a lot of talk about it, but very few companies or organizations in the Philippines are actually needing it, right? And then there's not so much outsourcing of that particular skill going on here as well. So most of the opportunities, you could go abroad. Most of the exciting opportunities in machine learning are abroad. Um, so in a lot of the problems that need to be tackled in the Philippines, don't really need ML. There's, for example, for one of my companies, EduSuite, um, we're it's we use AI, but older forms of AI like rules resolution, right? So there's many forms of AI. ML is just one of them, and most of the problems that need to be dealt with um, don't really need machine learning. I mean, sometimes it's just knowledge of being able to automate basic statistics, for example, is enough. Um, and creating machine learning algorithms from scratch. It's not always necessary. So there's a lot of I know a lot of friends and peers in the industry implementing AI-enabled solutions like things for image recognition, for example, being able to my friend JDL implemented a solution for security that uses image recognition to check if a facility, to monitor security cameras. But he didn't really need to. His team didn't really need to write their own algorithms. They just used a service that's already available. I think they used a service from Azure, right? Um, right. It's a great area of research for computer science. For those in the academe, I still encourage people to take AI, but in the industry, the Philippine industry hasn't really caught on yet. Um, if you do pursue AI, know that the typical math and statistics being taught in most computer science programs is far inadequate. So you need to take a lot more math um, than what's provided by basic than a typical computer science program. Um, and beyond knowing a lot of math is you should be able to apply it to model a particular problem domain. All right. Philippine government, I've participated in some consultations um, drafting its AI roadmap. So hopefully, we could see more AI support for AI and maybe government projects involving AI. Uh, let's hope. Let's hope for that. Um, then there's a lot of excitement about data science and data engineering. This is a great field. I encourage a lot of people to go into it. Um, it's uh, it's not so much heavy on computer science. It's not so much computer science problem, but data science is more being able to understand and model a domain. So a lot of having a deep understanding of say finance or healthcare, consumer goods industry or logistics, agriculture, and being able to model that mathematically or statistically, and then write code, but doesn't have to be CS level code as long as you can automate, right? It doesn't have to be computer science level programming. Um, so strong knowledge of the domain, strong background in math and statistics, but the programming requirements in most cases is quite simple. Okay, so in fact, there's a lot of non-CS. You'll have a lot of competition from non-computer science grads. A lot of doctors, accountants, business grads, scientists. They go into data science, and then they learn just enough programming, such as Python. Right. Of course, data science is different from data engineering. Right. So for data science, you have a lot of competition from non-CS grads because you don't really need CS level programming. The more uh, the more computer science type of work is in data engineering. So this is the optimization of the of collecting, processing, storing, and retrieving data, right? So this is about being able to optimize, being able to suck in tons and tons of data and properly transform it, do computations, make decisions, storage. All right. So these are the computer science and the software engineering problems, the exciting problems. Okay. So I'd encourage more for CS grads to pursue data engineering rather than data science. Um, then there's game development. Again, there's a lot of hype. If this is your passion, I suggest do go for it. The prospects during the pandemic, for some reason, even improved during the pandemic. And a lot of global companies are hiring game developers in the Philippines directly instead of going through outsourcing companies. They hire them directly. Um, and of course, the local companies, like the ones doing outsourcing, are also experience an increase in demand. Um, um, but just a note, it's not as high as most other outsourcing practices, like the 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 real the other areas of software engineering. Typically, writing software for banks or logistics companies or such as that. Or game development has never been as large in the Philippines and anywhere else in the world. Um, the opportunities haven't been as large as the regular software engineering opportunities. Also, the salaries aren't as high as the regular software engineering opportunities. If you have a choice between front end and back end, if you want to know which has higher salary potential, of course, there's your passion, right? You go pursue your passion. But if you're choosing, if salary is one of their considerations, salary and being able to advance quickly in your career, that it's back end is definitely early on. There was another developer who a more senior foreign engineer that told me that the money is in the back end, and it's still so true today. There was this in the news recently. I think some sort of blockchain uh, company accidentally sent $90 million to people, and they're begging to have them return that money. So that just goes to show why back end engineers are paid so much, because the consequences of getting back end making mistakes in the back end are hugely consequential, right? Front end mistakes, somebody complains, he can't see a button or something, right? And normally the bugs are easily caught. In the back end, the bugs aren't easy to catch, and so a lot of them hit production, and not only do companies lose millions or billions of dollars from back end mistakes, but also back end mistakes have killed people, like the software for the 737, right? Medical software has killed people, um, given the wrong dosage, or shot the wrong radiation out of these radiation machines. So back end developers are paid a lot more money normally on average than front end devs. But if your passion is, but follow your passion. Of course, you won't be able to succeed if your passion isn't there, right? Um, Also, back end has longer lasting skills. So I know friends, 20-year, 30-year experience in C++. For example, they started out C++, and as things moved to Java and elsewhere, or Go, or somewhat Kotlin or whatever, they were able to retain, because the skills are more learned. It's not so much about a particular technology or language. It's more about your understanding of concurrency, your ability to model a domain, to tune, to optimize, understanding how to manage data. Um, but most jobs today, you need a bit of both. Even if you're a back end developer, you often need to do a little Angular and or React every once in a while. Um, Front end devs also need a good foundation in optimization, because more and more work is being done on the front end. There's more and more JavaScript. They need to be optimized, otherwise your browsers crash, right? Or it becomes very slow. Anyway, again, follow your heart wherever your passion is. In terms of programming languages, PHP has lots of job opportunities, but there's usually a ceiling on how much companies are willing to pay for PHP devs. But again, you'll never run out of job opportunities for PHP. They have the most job opportunities, but normally the companies are only willing to pay up to a certain point. Python is great for data science jobs. Doesn't really meet the requirements for systems engineering because of poor concurrency capabilities. Um, there's also uh, the language itself doesn't lend itself well to preventing invalid states in the objects. C++ has very interesting opportunities. There's a lot of Japanese companies doing things like for telcos and device drivers here in the Philippines. Um, Very interesting. There's very few companies doing it, but all the jobs are usually very interesting, very cool projects. C Sharp is a great platform. I think Microsoft is doing well under Satya Nadella on focusing on the enterprise. Exciting things happening. Um, uh, JavaScript, TypeScript, king of the front end. Uh, a lot of companies are also using it for the back end, but finding that it's a pain, right? Because it's such a pain, they normally don't want any juniors touching the back end. They'll only have seniors. JavaScript, because it's dynamically typed and all these things, doesn't lend itself well to preventing invalid states. Um, Java is still king of the back end. Uh, um, uh, of course, it has the same advantage. Java and C Sharp have similar advantages. They're practically cousins, right? Uh, Twins separated at birth, C Sharp and Java. They have great concurrency, type safety. They have mature frameworks and libraries, both of them. But Java, of course, has overwhelmingly more libraries and frameworks. Java has the largest enterprise installed base, so C Sharp is gaining more adoption. Things are going great there, but far and away, the existing installed base of Java is there. So we'll expect Java to be king of the back end for quite a while. I don't know for how long, but that's the current state. Um, so let me talk about some of the skills that are important uh, that a lot of software engineering companies like my own companies, Orange and Bronze and EduSuite, are looking for. Okay, so one is understanding safe coding practices. Right, the back end, it's hard to detect. It's hard to detect bugs, so we need people who understand safe coding practices to prevent bugs. All right. So normally I have exercises, code examples, and I have people figure out how code can be improved to be safer, but we don't have that time. So for example, here, understanding that in this situation, you need a defensive copy. Well, one is you validate the parameters, and that's one of the most basic ways to have safe coding. Uh, Parameter validation. And then here, one of the things that should be obvious to a good software engineer, but not commonly taught, is that in this case, you need to have a defensive copy. You can't just take a mutable parameter. Uh, you can't have a mutable field and I'll just take it from the parameter from outside. You should only have a copy, right? Even going outside, even the getters should only return a defensive copy, not return the actual field if the class itself if the class of the field is mutable. Um, Very risky. Then there's prefer immutability, avoid making sure your fields are final, avoiding setters, uh, right? I have an entire 5 day course on these things. Um, a lot of profs have taken it, and I've yeah tortured them in 5 days to understand the safe coding practices. Um, Understanding design patterns and anti patterns. Design patterns are recurring good uh, solutions, known solutions to recurring problems. Anti patterns are common mistakes that people think are good practices, but they keep repeating it. All right. I don't have time to go through all these. Each design patterns class will take to deal with it properly will take at least 2 or 3 days or even more. But I encourage every software engineer should understand design patterns and anti patterns. Um, Cloud is it's impossible to have a decent career, especially if you're on the back end, without a good understanding of the cloud. And if you have a certification on the cloud, that certainly sets you apart. Uh, when CS profs interview me, hey, besides learning computer science, what should our students learn? What certification should they gain? I always tell them, encourage them to get an AWS certification before they graduate. That will set them far apart from all their competition. All right. Um, Here again, there's I don't have time to run through these exercises, but here understanding concurrency, right? Here, there's a race condition. I don't know if you can see the race condition. You have to understand how that something that works on your own machine because it's only you're testing it on a single thread won't work in the back end where you might have 1,000 threads doing the same thing concurrently. All right, so um, computer science programs should teach students how to write code that is safe even in a concurrent environment. Some CS programs teach their students how to create threads and how to create concurrency, but not how to write code that is safe in a heavily concurrent environment. So understanding concurrency is essential. So many mistakes, so many deadly mistakes will happen if you don't understand how to write safe code in a concurrent environment. I don't have time to create to go through testing. Well, this is a test to a simple test um, for testing a concurrent test. It's a test that launches multiple threads to test the code if it's safe in a multi-threaded environment. Test and having said that, test automation is essential, and I don't mean testing the UI. Don't bother with things like at the undergrad level. If you're a CS student, maybe if you're an IT student or IS student, you can bother with things like Robot Framework or Selenium. But for CS students, you need to understand JUnit. All right, so testing, not UI testing, but automated testing against for specific methods at the method level. So if you understand how to use JUnit, understand test-driven development. Again, these are essential skills for any back-end developer. Um, Test automation and test-driven development, uh, because you write the tests first, right? You write the test before you write the production code. It influences your the design, and you end up writing better code because you write your tests first. You think about your tests first. Um, and it's also a great way to document your code because the first thing you look at is the code examples. That's exactly what unit tests are, right? So it leaves great documentation for the people who are maintaining, um, going to maintain the code, right? So it's more reliable. I'm actually not a fan of code comments. I'd rather have uh, clean code and plenty of unit tests. Um, um, and of course, you can't have DevOps if you don't know anything about test automation. Relational databases, one of my frustrations. Many devs, in fact, seems like all the devs from any school are very poor on the database side. They don't understand how to write efficient queries, efficient schemas, when to normalize and when to denormalize, how to avoid deadlocks, how to have transactional integrity. Um, Terrible. Most of the database skills of computer science grads today are just awful. Uh, but again, this is essential to the back end. So you need to have great skills in the database. And this will set you apart if you do. Um, right. Um, and then there's communication and leadership, which is half the success of any type of engineer. Communication and leadership. I think this is has been emphasized over and over again by other speakers. Just a bit about one of my companies, Orange and Bronze. We provide more training than any other company in the Philippines. Um, and we sponsor not just training, we train other companies. We provide training and advisory service for other companies. We also provide training on on design and development, leadership, and we provide sponsored certifications throughout your career. Um, we have the best developers and best mentors, um, and because we're considered the country's thought leader in software development. Um, so, uh, and we have a very objective promotion process. Even if you're at the the type that it's just about how if you're able to perform your metrics, uh, uh, being able to deliver and satisfy the requirements of the client, and your growth in your skills and certifications. All right. So sometimes people from fresh grad to we've had some people in 6 years they from fresh grad to they've made it to senior, so they already have six-digit salaries 6 years into their career. Right. Our mission is adopt best practices and share them with others. If you're interested, visit orangeandbronze.com/careers. All right. That's it. I hope I made it under 20 minutes.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Legaspi. Mr. Legaspi is also part of our panel discussion later. So, any questions related to his presentation, we'll try to answer that later. Okay? So, for our next speaker has been involved in strategic capability development and digital transformation consulting initiatives at Accenture, IBM, Point West, Teradata, and now as Chief Analytics Officer of eClaro. Let's all welcome Mr. Sherwin Pelayo.
Good afternoon. Magandang hapon sa inyo lahat. Thank you for the invitation. I'm honored to be here together with the future workforce for technology for our country. So, what I'd like to discuss for you today is something that I'm really passionate about. Mon and Kalen actually started, some discussions about, the workplace skills, and then Kalen started about talking about some of the skills needed that is related to data. So I'd like to hone in some more on those. Let's talk about data. Let's talk about analytics. At the end of this short presentation, I hope that you do realize that you are actually, in fact, doing analytics already. And this is a call for you to actually do more, regardless of whatever career you're going to be, after graduating from your degrees. Okay, so let's start off by siguro mga konting kwento. Si Mang Isko is a yellow corn farmer. And gaya ng mga magsasaka natin sa Pilipinas, Philippines still primarily an agriculture country, masinop si Mang Isko in taking note of the things that he does every time that he goes out to his yellow corn farm. So may notebook siya and he makes sure that he takes note of kailan siya nagtatanim, ano yung tinanim niya, anong klaseng corn yung tinanim niya, anong fertilizer ginagamit niya, kailan siya nagdidilig at ganong amount of water yung kanyang ginagamit. Okay, so every day na or every time na nagtatanim siya, every time na nag-harvest siya, and all of the activities in between nire-record ni Mang Isko yan. During the harvest season, palaging tinitingnan ni Mang Isko. So, ano ba talaga yung yield ko? Gaano kadami yung na-harvest ko? And since meron siyang notebook ng mga harvest niya for the past seasons, nakikita niya na may mga times na tumataas, dumadami yung harvest niya, may mga times na bumababa yung yield ng kanyang yellow corn farm. So based on those na nakolekta niya over time, he's able to see some kind of trend or pattern na parang there are times na dun sa mga times na ang taas ng yield niya, ganitong type of fertilizer ginamit niya.
That's why a lot of people are still looking for a learning bubble, or in our case, in the industry, a work bubble. That's one of the reasons why we created Spring Valley. Now, what is Spring Valley? Let's watch this video.
My name is Jonathan De Luzuriaga, and this is my business diary. Let me tell you about Spring Valley. Spring Valley is Asia's version of Silicon Valley. The Philippines is going to play a vital role in the digital transformation of the entire world. And Spring Valley is going to be a venue where innovators and technologists could congregate in order to create technology for good. We found our partner with Globe Business. And a vision as big as Spring Valley would need to have partners that are both reliable and compatible. Reliable in terms of providing the connections that would enable our business to succeed, and compatibility with our core value, which is one, love for this country, and second, a deep appreciation of technology and innovation. These are very exciting times for Spring Valley and for the Republic of the Philippines.